All right, cool. Well, welcome everyone. I'm so glad we were able to hop on tonight. It's good to see some folks, and we saw some folks last night at our candle making event, which was fun. So busy week for Women on Wheels, which is great. I'm really excited for tonight. So Rochelle actually came to me with this idea a while ago now. I want to say back in the spring, and I was like, she wanted to do a talk on this, and I was like, well, let's try to incorporate it with October. So there's kind of like a theme around it, and I'll ask some of my athletic brewing friends. So I put a call out on our page, and like instantly I got so many responses, and I was like, okay, we can't have a panel of like 10 people. But I'm really excited to have Lynn, Gina, and Allison join us tonight. So like I said, I met them all through Athletic Brewing. Some of you I follow and know a little more than others, so I'm excited to get to know you all a bit better. They all do athletics in some form or fashion and incorporate non-alcoholic drinks into their life in some form or fashion. So we're going to hear all about their stories tonight and what they have to say, where they're coming from, and all that good stuff. And then obviously we'll do question and answer at the end for anyone that has that. And that will be our night. So I think first things first, if our three speakers just kind of want to tell us where you're coming from tonight and what have you been up to today? I don't know if we want to have a same order or whatever you guys want to do.
I'll go first.
Okay.
Beat you to it, Lynn. Saw you going for it. No. And I apologize. I'm wearing my Britney Spears lip syncing headset here because I can't seem to get my Bluetooth headphones to work today. I'm Gina Paige. I am in Menominee Falls, Wisconsin. So I'm just outside of the Milwaukee area, about a 20-minute drive downtown. And I am big into road bikes and obviously Peloton. I'm a huge Peloton fanatic. And what was the other question? What we were up to today?
Yeah.
Not much, to be honest. I'm a little under the weather. I was up with a stomach bug last night. So I've just been lounging. I have lounge pants on. So yeah.
Cool. Well, glad you were able to make it despite not feeling good.
Yeah.
Lynn, you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, guys. My name is Lynn Rogers. I am just a little bit south of Gina. I'm in Chicago, Illinois, right downtown, so right by Wrigley Field. I am a triathlete and a CrossFitter. Those are probably my 4 or 2, however you want to think about it. Main sports. What I do today, I'm on the train of the fall, not feeling well. I'm on the end of pneumonia at the moment, so I chilled for a while. I went for a walk, which was super exciting. That's about as much activity as I've had in a couple weeks. And then good friends are celebrating the 7th anniversary of their own business this evening, and so I'm going to pop over and cheers to their good fortune of things going well.
Awesome. Good seeing you. All right, Allison, all you.
All right, I'm Allison Richards. I am very east of both Gina and Lynn. I'm in Kennebunkport, Maine.
Oh, cool.
So that is where I'm coming from. What my day was. Well, unfortunately, I was on my way to swim this morning and I had a collision with a deer. So my day didn't start very well. Yeah, it kind of set the tone. So, always start your day over again, went for a run, regrouped, work from home, all was well, everything's good. So yeah, so I'm excited to do something a little bit different this evening, shift gears a bit.
I know I saw your post on Instagram. I was like, oh no, it's terrible. It's scary
like,
too.
It's totally scary. It's totally scary. I was very, very fortunate. But tying it back to athletics, those early morning cold, like the weather's changing, swims, you're like, all right, I'm just going to go. I get in the car and I'm like, I should have just stayed home.
Right. Right.
It wasn't worth it. Oh, well, glad the car didn't look too bad.
No, it's insurance, so it's all good. Everything will work out.
Perfect. All right, so I think we'll start with the athletic bits. So just tell us, we can go in the same order, kind of how you started in athletics, what your athletic journey looked like, and then maybe a little what you've been up to this year. I know a lot of you have done a lot of fun things this year, but I know we have a few months left. So if there's any fun things left, feel free to add that in too. So Gina, we'll start with you.
Yeah. So I'll say I consider myself an everyday athlete. My coworker just said that to me the other day. And I really struggle with feeling like I belong. I really struggle with imposter syndrome. And so I'm always, especially as part of being a part of this athletic ambassador group, I feel like I'm very early in my athletic journey. But kind of where I began was when I was 18, I joined the Air Force and I served 8 years active duty. So obviously physical fitness was a part of my life throughout that. But I started to deal with some health issues at the end of my military career and put on a lot of weight and just wasn't feeling good. Turned out I had thyroid cancer. That pesky little thyroid wasn't working. So hence why I wasn't feeling good. But kind of after I got that under control, I really, wanted to change my lifestyle. And I have a 10-year-old daughter. I really wanted to be a good role model for her. And so there was a charity ride for cancer research, and I was part of a cancer research trial, and it was benefiting the UW health system, which is, who I participate in a research trial with. And so what started as one ride ended up kind of being a passion of mine. I really found it as an opportunity to heal physically, mentally. And so lost 70 pounds in 2019 and then just really kept pushing. And now I'm at a point where I'm starting to, I don't want to say really get competitive. I feel like I'm more competitive with myself. I just want to begin to challenge myself more. I've been sitting in the 30 to 40 mile rides, and I really want to get to a century ride. So that's my goal for next year. This year I did my annual charity ride. I joined a women's cycling group, which is really exciting. I know that I need that mentorship to kind of guide me to the next level and to hold me accountable. And then I would just say one other ride I did this year, which was really fun, is called River West 24. It's a 24-hour bike ride, and it is held in this community in Milwaukee, and it's a very diverse community. And you ride for 24 hours and you get points for the laps you take on the route, but then you also get points for stopping at bonus checkpoints. And they did all sorts of things. Like somebody set up in an alleyway. It was like the old school paperboy game. You literally got a bag with papers and people were like spraying you with hoses, and there were targets on the walls, and there were other things that we got Narcan training. Just really cool and really a big sense of community. So a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to it next year. But that's me, I think, in a nutshell. When I'm not bike riding, I do like to stand up paddleboard in the summer. Summers are very short here, so I don't get to do a lot of that. I enjoy downhill skiing, but again, in Wisconsin, that's pretty much old landfills. So it takes about 30 seconds to get from the top to the bottom. But, it's still fun. So, yeah.
That 24-hour thing sounds so fun.
Yeah, it's
cool.
a lot of fun, and there's a lottery to get in because it's just like grown to be a huge thing. And it's all volunteer based.
That's awesome.
So really cool.
Can't wait to see what century you do. Karen did her first century this year. Yeah, big things. Cool. All right, Lynn.
All right. My athletic journey is definitely, I've always done something athletic. I was a gymnast actually growing up. And so that was my jam through high school, really. And then I started coaching when I was a teenager. And so took that to college. And so I was coaching my way through college as kind of my, the job that paid for all the things as much as possible. I started to run when I was younger, it was always just like because I was worried about weight, that was if I went out for a run. I mean, running was absolutely the punishment as a gymnast. Like if we had to run, something had not gone well that day, or it was just part of like summer conditioning, that sort of thing. But when I was in college, some of the other coaches and I would occasionally like go out and run. And so I kind of started to do it a little bit. When I went into graduate school, though, by that point, I was a little bit heavier than I wanted to be, a little heavier than I was used to. I'd been a little, less mobile and less athletic than I was used to. And I was actually up in Madison, Wisconsin, for graduate school, which is a fantastic town for being active. And so the first thing I started to do was to run. I was on a little like outlet of one of the lakes up there, and it was almost exactly 5K to make it around the lake. And it took, I remember the first day that I made it all the way around, without ever stopping and walking, kind of thing. So it was a point of progress, but bit by bit, that just became more of a thing. I had people around me that started doing races. I had a friend that was going to be doing the Chicago Marathon, and decided there was a Madison half marathon, and decided to do that. So kind of train my way up to that. At the same time, just getting around Madison, it's a pretty widespread campus. And so biking around became a thing, and finding a bike, and same kind of deal. The people around you can be such an influence, right? So I had friends that biked. There was another girl in my lab that biked with a women's biking team in Madison. And so like literally within a week of the first time I'd ever actually worn clips, I'm riding with a women's team. And I think I will never forget falling 6 times at the same stop sign, just trying to stop, because you guys know how much fun that is when you have no idea what you're doing and how to pedal without having clipped in yet and everything else. So made a solid ass out of myself, but discovered the roads and the land and the hills and everything that are outside of town up there, which just really makes for some phenomenal riding. And so that became a thing while running had kind of taken off and built and started doing marathons. Took all of that when I came down to Chicago, and for the longest time it was focused on running. I got connected with the Nike running team, and they do at the time did a lot of like free training for the marathon, connected in with a group there. And, it's all about community. Everything that has kind of grown in my athletic life has been opportunities to be with other people, and I think that's why it's become a long life thing, as opposed to if I was always just concerned about how I fit in my jeans, I would never still be doing these things, right? It's too much, right? It's too much. 4 a.m, trying to figure out why you're getting on your bike instead of drinking coffee or sleeping. Like, you have to have that crew that you don't want to let down, that you don't want to miss the stories, that you want to be there for. And so a number of things kind of grew from that. So after years of doing a lot of marathons and just kind of biking as back and forth for life and for commuting and everything else, friends started to do like, hey, I'm going to try a half Ironman. Hey, I'm going to do a full. And the half grew its way into my life. Forced myself to get back in the pool and try to swim again. I'd done a triathlon, 10 years earlier. When I was in Madison, I did a 1, and was like, no, I'm not doing this. Like, if I'm going to run and try to do marathons, I'm not going to try to do the rest of this stuff. It's too much time, too much things, whatever. But got the bug and got into it. It was about the same time, interestingly, that it was kind of like, I thought my was going to be the end of long distance running for me. I was a whopping 36 years old at the time. And I was like, I'm so old. My knees hurt. My hips hurt. Everything's broken. Well, actually, it turns out that everything was just weak. It was about the time that CrossFit was becoming popular. My partner was really excited to give it a try. He really thought that it was going to be something that would help. And nothing has changed my life quite the same. The injury problems gone. Like, once I had that muscle strength and the balance around those joints, I've rarely had a problem like I used to, since then. And I think it really made it possible to tackle big things like a half iron and a full iron. So that was all me, and kind of what I thought I was just going to continue to roll on doing. In 2017, I was hit with a autoimmune disease that's very similar to multiple sclerosis. So it's called chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy, CIDP, and it's a progressive demyelinating disorder. So my nerves are constantly being attacked. And so the connections down to my muscles are constantly being attacked. And so it had me paralyzed. Initially, I was in the hospital for about 3.5 months. We figured out what was going on. We figured out how to start to try to at least treat it for maintenance, and built the strength back with the CrossFit, built the walking to the running, built everything in the direction. And it's only been in the last couple of years. It's a huge roller coaster. There's huge ups and downs. I've had lots of chemotherapy and different treatments that didn't work and all sorts of things. So I'm never really sure where my baseline is or what I'm coming from. But it was a big goal to get back to the things that I love to do. So I've done a couple marathons since then. I mean, the running is not the same. The speed will never be there in the same way. But just to be able to get out there and be there with those friends and connect with those people. I mean, I know you guys understand, like, the people around you was huge. And so this year, through Athletic, actually, I had the opportunity to tackle Ironman Barcelona. And so I just got back from Spain and Italy. Unfortunately, I can't be standing here triumphant. It was a bad day to have a bad day. It was a rough one. And my disease kind of got kicked up and hit really hard on race day, which, I'd done all my 100-mile bike rides, and I'd done my running, and I'd done everything. And then to have it on the day that I couldn't make the time cutoff for the bike was really, really frustrating. But that's life, right? That's the way these things are going to be. When you tackle big goals, you're not guaranteed that it's going to go exactly right every time. So that was my biggest goal for this year. I'm kind of excited at the moment to have a little downtime, because I think I didn't get as much base strength work in a year ago as I think would be really good. I've got a number of things that I'm excited to do next year. I'm going to do a 3-day ultra. So that's exciting. I've done it once before through, there's a Trans series, if you guys have ever heard of it. There's Trans Rockies, which is a 5-day or 3-day race. There's Trans Selkirks, which is in Canada as a 3. We've done that one. And so now there's a Trans Moab that they're doing. And I'm super excited to give that a try. So that'll be in March, and then a couple of 70.3s on the schedule so far. So I'm not giving up, still moving forward, and we'll see what happens.
Cool. Thanks for sharing, Lynn. And I know you had your call last night too. I was so bummed I couldn't get on it. There's not enough.
It's fun, actually. Yeah,
the team, and then the recording didn't work. And then the recording didn't work, so I can't watch it. I was like,
oh, you're kidding. Oh, we had a good time. It was fun. It was a neat conversation with everyone that had been in Barcelona, and then had also done Oceanside 70.3 as well, to kind of talk about those different things. So it was a good time.
Cool. Well, thanks
really
for hopping on again.
I would say it really felt like the Barcelona crew got to be pretty tight over the course of that. Like, you guys,
which is amazing, because we'd only met each other in Barcelona, but
that's so cool.
Because we talk so often. Like, when we had said, hey, we're going to be at the English speaking, obviously, we're going to be at the English speaking athletes meeting. Like, we recognized each other immediately. We had our table, and it was like, we're off and running. It was really a very cool group of people, for sure.
Wow, that's so awesome. That's
it was fun.
All right, Allison, all you.
All me. So I guess I always, like, being an athlete was always a huge part of my identity. I played team sports growing up. I was one of those kids that went from, like, basketball to soccer practice, and then you have an AAU game and a club game, and it was just like boom, 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 boom. That was my identity. Those were the people I hung out with. That's just the way it was. And I was pretty much like that all the way up through high school. And in my late teens, early 20s, that, like, late high school, college age, things started shifting in me. My priorities changed. I had my father passed away when I was 19. So it was just a lot of stuff. And I ended up going into a pretty dark place. I'm on this panel because I actually am been sober for quite a long time. I have substance abuse issues. So getting sober, coming out of all that, getting back into athletics was a huge contributing part of that. It took me a lot of years to come back. But once I had my son when I was 22. And that's when I really, like, started getting my priorities back in place. And I never went back into team sports. I didn't find that camaraderie at an older age, kind of jump back in. But I started running. I started running because I could put him in the stroller and we could go. And that's just what I did. It was like a sanity thing at that point. Like, gotta move, gotta go, gotta stay moving. And I found out I really loved running. And I kept doing that for a long time. I moved around for a while. I actually lived in Connecticut for about 6 or 7 years. I did a lot of my sober journey there, a lot of growing. And then from there, I moved up to Maine, and I'm trying to think of the timeline here. The year before I moved to Maine, my mother works for a hospital up here. She was a breast cancer nurse practitioner. And we have this event up in Southern Maine called Try for a Cure. And it is a fundraiser for the Maine Cancer Foundation. And she was doing it through work. And I honestly, like at that point in my life, had never even heard of triathlon. I was like, I have no idea what that is. Like, yeah, I know how to swim. I think I have a bike in the basement, but like, yeah, I'm a runner. Like I always am a runner. So I told her that I would sign up and do this thing with her. And it was an all women's triathlon, very low key, it's not cutthroat. And that day literally changed my life. Like, I think the event in itself is just so heartwarming, and everyone being there for the same goal, but finding like, oh my God, this is something that challenges me, that I continue to grow in, that I have the ability to continue to grow in. And I found with triathlon, it was something where my goals just kept getting bigger. I moved to Maine. I found a running club, and through that running club, I found a triathlon club, which are my people. Like, that's what I've learned. Like, I think both Lynn and Gina talked about community, and that's really what it comes back to for me, whether it's talking about my journey into sobriety or my journey into becoming a stronger triathlete. It's totally immersed in the different communities and gaining support and strength from each other. So I am a board member on the club now, very active in that. In my professional life, I actually took a job with Maine Cancer Foundation back in January, and I now run Try for a Cure. So full circle. But coming back to Athletic Brewing, I actually heard of Athletic when I was living in Connecticut. I had first gotten sober, and they weren't what they are now. And I just thought, that's so cool. Like, I learned about their ethos and, just no compromise. It's like, oh, that's cool. But at that point, I wasn't really ready to make that leap into non-alcoholic beer. I wasn't sure that was the choice I wanted to make. Years later, when I had done more soul searching, and I was like, that's something that will fit into my life. I'm totally comfortable with that. I applied for I tried the product and I liked it. I applied for the ambassador program, and it was just great. I mean, Julie and Mason, the two individuals who kind of are gurus, they run the ambassador show there. It was super helpful, super cool. Everybody's been great. This past year, I was able to volunteer at Ironman Maine with our rep in the area. And I mean, it was so much fun. It's just like, every time you show up, every race I've done and Athletic's been there, you go, you hang out, you talk with the ambassadors that are there. So that was my journey with them. So as I said, like, triathlon is my main sport, 3 sports. This year, my big goal was doing a 70.3, and I did it. It was in September. I stuck to my plan. I kind of blew my goals out. I was really, really happy. So, it's another bug that I've caught. Like, I got the Olympic bug. Now I have the half bug. I'm never getting the full bug, but we'll see.
This is recorded. We'll find out. This is recorded.
I know. Well, talk to me in a couple of years, and my son is out of high school, and I have time. But I did put my name in the hat for Oceanside next year.
Oh,
so
awesome.
Fingers crossed. I'll get to represent Athletic there. So yep, that's me.
Cool. I love it. Yeah. If you guys that aren't an Athletic and Brewing Ambassador haven't figured out by now, they do a lot of stuff for us. There's a lot of races they sponsor and stuff, and you get entries paid for you and all this good stuff. And then you meet even more people, which I think is great. And it's funny, I feel like I have a lot of like online friends through Athletic Brewing. Like I haven't met them in person, but they're like a very good online friend.
Totally.
But it's a great little community, and I just like everyone's stories are just so different, which I think is so great on like how we all landed at Athletic Brewing. So yeah, some of you like have touched a little on kind of what led you to your sobriety or incorporating NA beer or drinks into your life. So if we want to go into that a little more and like what that looks like for you. I think that's like what's the cool thing about the group is it's not, I feel like the stereotype is everyone thinks that everyone's like completely sober in the group, and that's not like totally true. Like everyone's there for a different reason and doing different things, which I think is incredible. So if we want to all kind of dive a little more into that and kind of Athletic Brewing, and then like there's also a lot of other NA options. So if you've explored some of those or have a NA bar in your area, I think that's pretty cool. We definitely don't have those in Connecticut, so outside of Athletic Brewing, but some places have some pretty cool bars that are coming up. And so Gina, take it away.
Yeah, so I started my sober journey January 1st of this year. I decided to do a dry January. I had tried doing random dry months for quite some time, and I never, ever succeeded. But I realized for me, there were kind of two things. I finished my master's degree in May of 2021. And so like through the start of the pandemic, while I was working from home and all of that, I had my homework to focus on. And so like that really kept me in a good space. But once I had graduated, I realized I had all this time. I was working from home. And I found that I was using alcohol as my transition. That was I work from home, I live at home. This is how I know that now I'm in my personal life. And I just realized that I was kind of doing a lot. I deal with anxiety and depression. And so I started dry January, and as I was doing it, I was reading Quit Like a Woman. If you haven't read that, highly recommend it. It's a really interesting read. I will say there is some politics in it. If you can push that aside, if it's not your viewpoints as well, but a good read. And it really talks about how our culture is obsessed with alcohol, and just really changed my perspective and made me kind of take a step back and look at my life and some of the choices I've made and how those weren't really healthy. And I was really relying on alcohol for social situations to kind of ease that social anxiety. And so as I kind of started to go through the month, I realized I had never slept better in my life. Oh my gosh, it was like absolutely amazing. My skin started to look a little better, which was nice. You know, I'm not getting any younger. But the other piece was health-wise, I've been on blood pressure medicine for a few years now, even after losing 70 pounds. I just can't get off of it. But by quitting the alcohol, that really helped. I'm on the lowest dose I've ever been. And that's really exciting for me. And so at the end of dry January, I was sitting there with a couple of my neighbors who did it with me, and they're like, okay, you know, I'm going back. Like I'm going to be, you know, better at not drinking during the week or whatever. And I was just like, I'm just going to keep going. Like, and my husband, I remember, looked at me and he's like, forever? And I was like, I don't know, like, but I'm just going to keep going. And so I made a post on Facebook because I felt like it was something that would kind of keep me accountable, and also show people that it's okay. You know, saying that you're sober doesn't have to equate to this huge thing. We don't need to stereotype people. And so I've just continued. I use the, I think it's called Try Dry app. I'm 293 days. Highly recommend if anybody's looking for an app to track. There's also opportunities in there to, you know, schedule days and plan drinking days. So for me, it's just been really great. Athletic Brewing was a huge part of it. As I was kind of going through dry January, I'm a wine and beer fan. I'm not really a mixed drink fan. And I started with NA wines and I was like, this is absolutely terrible. They have a long way to go. And so started researching, and Athletic Brewing was like consistent across all of them. And being in Wisconsin, we're a huge drinking state. The drinking culture here is, I mean, we literally have beer gardens in our parks. You go to a beer garden and you're sitting at the bar and there's a playground next door for your kids to play. It's just part of life here. And so you can also get like 7 DUIs and still have a driver's license. So that's neither here nor there, but yeah, so I tried Athletic Brewing, really liked it. And then I kind of started branching out. I realized a lot of our local breweries here were also kind of hopping on that train, which was really exciting to see. Because I think more and more folks are realizing that, you know, you don't need it. You can still have fun without it. There's a lot of things that are unhealthy about it. And so it's been great, but I will say outside of Athletic Brewing, if you can get Untitled Art, I don't know if they have those outside of our area. They have a really great juicy IPA. On the wine front, Groovy is really good. You can usually get that at Total Wine or online, because I love champagne and that gives me like that bubbly Prosecco rosé. So definitely recommend that. But I will say I'm going to be challenged. I'm going to Mexico first week of December, and all-inclusive resort. Everybody I'm going with drinks. So that's I think going to be my first really big challenge, to not feel that urge, and just have a mojito instead. So
Thanks. I've heard of Groovy. A triathlete I follow, a professional triathlete, was sponsored by them, or maybe still is. So she talks about it a bit, because they're based out in Colorado.
I'm not sure. I just know it was really hard to find. Yeah. Like I couldn't find it for the longest time, and you could only buy it online in like 36 packs or something, because it's like an individual like bottle, like mini glass, and I was just like, I'm not going to do, I've had no success. And then luckily Total Wine, I don't know if you have Total Wine.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. They're now my favorite. But they started carrying it and I was like, ooh, great. And they actually sell beer too, which I haven't tried, but.
Cool.
I thought you were describing the IPA, but it's literally called Juicy IPA.
Yes. It is.
I'm looking into it.
It's really good. Yeah. And another one that's really good is we have Lakefront Brewery here, and they have a River West Stein that they make in NA, also really good. And I think you can order that one online. So
cool.
Yeah.
Thanks. Awesome. All right, Lynn, we'll toss it to you.
All right. So I am definitely one that is not sober. I use and enjoy Athletic primarily because I can't handle much alcohol, and that's a function of the medications that I'm on, as well as just the fact that I have a nervous system that's falling apart on its own, and I feel like I really don't need to be giving it extra help in that area. My background is as a neuroscientist and a research engineer, and I had studied stroke and stroke recovery for a really long time, and so what happens to the brain, what happens to the nervous system, kind of what was happening to my own nervous system was kind of, right in my wheelhouse, but not. But it had me thinking really hard about what are all the things that I can do to support the regrowth of my nervous system, because mine has been damaged pretty heavily by the first wave of this disease. And so I have long-term, it's going to be permanent nerve damage in nerves to the muscles in my feet and the muscles of my lower legs. When I was first starting recovery, everything was about, what can I do to aid that as much as possible, and there are no drugs that you can take to grow your nerves again, or to grow the coating on your nerves again. There's no treatment that helps. You just have to give it time. And so the other piece of that for me was providing the right environment. So I changed what I ate to try to help give the body all the correct nutrients that it needed to try to lessen inflammation as much as possible that can fight against the growth in the nervous system. And for the first year, did not have alcohol. For the first 6 months, I also didn't have coffee, which I do not recommend. There came a point where I was like, you know what? I have to live. I cannot lose everything in my life. And coffee made its way back. But for me, it's been, I love the flavor of wine. I love the flavor of beer. I'm one that really enjoys trying different things in different flavors. And I love dark beers and malty flavors and all these things. I'm also a fan of, hard alcohol. I like a good cocktail. And we live in a space where my partner is actually an owner of a winery with his father out in Healdsburg, out in Sonoma County, California. And so we are not lacking for wine in our house for sure. And it's good wine and it's wonderful. And it just had me start to think about, like, I know I can't make it past, a glass of wine or a beer. I have to be really thoughtful about what flavors, I'm definitely not going to have a Miller Lite, with the quantity of alcohol that I can have. And the same is true, for really bad wine or whatever. It's just like, I'm not going to waste my amount that I can have. And so finding something like Athletic, which I love a good beer after a workout. Like, I love it. Like, to finish a really hard workout, crack open a beer, bring it into the shower. Like, you have to have a shower beer after a workout. It's kind of a requirement. But it was just not aligned with the life that I was trying to live and the changes that had happened in my world. And so, as much as I love beer, if I'm hanging out at home, like, I don't necessarily need to drink it, but I do love that beer after a workout. And I do like to enjoy something while I'm sitting on the couch and watching TV. And that typically would be in our lives, opening a bottle of wine. Now I will have what is referred to as my tipple. I basically have a shot glass or a little bit, and I enjoy the hell out of those flavors. And then I will crack open an Athletic and enjoy that instead. I too have not found non-alcoholic wine that I have felt is worth my time. For the longest time, it was just like, non-alcoholic red wine. Like, isn't that grape juice? Like, aren't we kidding ourselves? Like, Welch's, what's happening? The ones that I've tried are real bad, but I'm hoping that they're improving. I've tried Groovy with one of their white wines, and I wasn't super in love with it. I have not tried Bubbles, so thank you for that. I will definitely give that a try. But it is nice to have those options, and I've always enjoyed getting a non-alcoholic during this whole journey of things. For me, when I'm out with my girlfriends and we go to dinner, I'll get a non-alcoholic cocktail, right? And you're still part of, everybody's interested in the flavors. Oh, how is it? How did the bartender do? What are you drinking? I love having something that's flavorful and different and interesting, and finding those bartenders that are willing to kind of dig in and play and make me something that's, more interesting than a Shirley Temple is delicious. And so finding that all of that can exist without the alcohol, because that's not the best thing for my system, can be really helpful. And then it also leaves me in a place where I can kind of save, that what I can have and what I can do for the things that I think are really worth it. And that balance has been really excellent in my life.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, Allison.
All right. Coming into this, I was kind of struggling because I didn't know how much of like the sober journey to go into, because there's a lot there. Like, to be honest, like, I was not someone who had a problem with alcohol and was like, I need to stop. I was jails, institutions, and the whole gamut. I thought I had a healthy relationship with alcohol growing up. I thought it was the thing that made me personable and made me this like bohemian goddess of like whatever fantasy I was telling myself at the time. I too struggle with anxiety, with depression, and never correlated the alcohol use with those things. So it really wasn't until I got into my late 20s and enough big milestones had hit that I realized, to be honest, you say in the Midwest, they don't give you DUIs. Well, they do in Connecticut. And I accrued enough of them to spend some time in the Niantic all-women's prison. I was incarcerated for 120 days and almost lost my son. And, things got really bad. And that's when I went on my sober journey. And at that time, and I think I mentioned before, like when I first found out about athletic, like there was a long period of time where an athletic or a non-alcoholic beverage wouldn't have been an appropriate fit for me. I hadn't put in the work that I needed for myself to know that I wasn't using that as a crutch, as a fallback, as, you know, because that's what it always was for me. And it just so happened organically that as I got to a place in my life where I was comfortable taking that step, there was this huge burst in this non-alcoholic space. You know, I live right outside Portland, which is a huge micro craft brewery, distilleries everywhere. So I've been fortunate to have this connection with athletics so that I can have my own thing too. You know, like I can go to a bar, I can go out with friends, I can go anywhere and order something. We do have a couple local non-alcoholics that don't stand up. They try. We do have one non-alcoholic beer bar down in Kittery, which I've not made my way down to yet,
cool.
but that's on the bucket list. But I'm just really fortunate. You know, my fiance is also sober and I've hooked him on athletic, you know, so that's how our household is. And that's how I foresee it being. You know, I kind of chuckled, Gina, when your friend or your partner asked you if this is how it's going to be. And you said, you know, I don't know. And it's kind of like the same thing. Like, I don't know. That's how I hope it's going to be. But that's how it is now. So athletic has been it's been really, really cool to be able to bring into my life and, you know, share with others, whether sober or not.
Appreciate it, Allison. I was always curious for someone in recovery if the non-alcoholic beer would be a trigger or not.
Yeah.
And I get asked that question. I'm a counselor, for those of you that don't know, and I started in a methadone clinic and I left there in May, and now I'm just doing telehealth at home, which is a much better fit for me. But I get asked that question a lot just because of the field I'm in and being an ambassador. And I'm like, I don't know. I could see it going either way, right? Like I could see it for sure being a trigger. And I'm like, maybe early in recovery, it wouldn't be the best of choices, but I guess everyone probably has a different view on that too.
Exactly. That's what I would say. I mean, I feel like it's such a personal thing. And when you know it's right, it's right. And there's no singular path to recovery or to sobriety. I went the AA path for many, many years. And one of the things that was said to me was that, you know, non-alcoholic beer is just a gateway into drinking again. And that's what I took to heart. And, you know, I'm not saying one theory is wrong or one theory is right. I'm still associated with AA in some capacity, but at some point you have to figure out what's going to work well for you and in your life.
Yeah, absolutely. And that makes sense. That's what it was the same thing at the methadone clinic with people going to like AA and NA, where it's like you're on methadone, you're not completely sober. And there's just like two very different theories around that. And I think it can be challenging to navigate. But
yeah,
thanks for the insight, because I'm like, I don't really know like how people feel or what their view is. So
yeah. And as I mentioned, like my partner's sober and we never drank together. We met each other in sobriety, but we were both very different drinkers. He was a beer drinker. So it was a conversation we had to have to bring athletic into the house to make sure everything was comfortable.
yeah. Yeah, makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So the last little bit, well, I guess two things. We can combine them together and then we'll open up the floor for questions. Since we're all athletic drinkers, I'm curious what everyone's favorite beer is. And if you want to do a flagship option and then like a pilot option, I think that's cool, because I think it's hard. I'm like always saying all my favorite ones are pilot beers and not everyone can get those. So I'm like, well, this isn't fair for everyone. So we'll do that. And then the last piece I have is like, what would you say to someone that's considering even a sober October or dry January, or maybe like going completely sober or trying it for a year? Like, what would you say for someone that's, I guess, like sober curious, maybe is the right way to phrase it. So yeah, those two things. Gina, you want to start?
Sure. Yeah, my favorite so far has been personal record, which I don't think you can get anymore. So Run Wild for sure. I'm also really excited to try the Ready Front, which is coming back out in November, because I'm a new ambassador this year, and I didn't know about Athletic Brewing last November. So I have some coming in the mail. I'm getting a little sneak peek since I'm a veteran, so I'm excited to have some of those in advance. And
It's
then
good. You're gonna like it.
My piece of advice. I would say that if it's something that you're going to continue doing, or even if you do it a month, that there will be times it is really challenging, and there will be times where you will see who really wants to hang out with you. That sounds kind of harsh, right? But I think I've learned through this journey that I had a lot of friends that were friends that I would just go out with because that was like all we did. And there was nothing deeper than going to a bar and drinking. And that's been interesting. It's actually been nice in a way. I've realized that there are relationships that don't serve me anymore, and I've been able to bolster other relationships and make those stronger and more fruitful. So I guess that's what I would say. Hopefully that's helpful and not deterring anybody.
Well, it's real, it's absolutely real. And it's part of that process. You kind of find out who people are and what your connection is with them. And it's not necessarily going to be there throughout our entire lives for all people. We've got to kind of reassess as we go. So I am one of those who's a athletic drinker that is not an IPA person. I recognize and appreciate. There we go. I recognize and appreciate that Athletic does amazing IPAs. I know this because everyone goes bananas over them, and my partner and a couple of good friends that have been expanded to presented with a number of them, like really like Run Wild. They really like the IPAs that come out. They really like personal record, and I can appreciate. And then I'm just like, not my thing. So mine from the standards has become Cerveza Athletica, just kind of straightforward lager, crisp, clean right there. So my favorites always end up being the pilot beers because they don't end up sticking around very long. So they had done a peanut butter porter with Justin's peanut butter, which was actually super, super flavorful. There's a couple of browns that have been good. There was a Irish red that they did over St. Patrick's Day that I thought they knocked out of the park. I have not had the Oktoberfest yet. That's on its way. So we'll see what's going on there. But I would also say that their Gosas are fantastic. I have not had a Gosa from them that isn't wonderful. So if you're looking for something that is so different from your standard beer, fruity, refreshing, a little sour, their Gosas are outstanding. In terms of tips for people like heading in, it's interesting. The kind of contrast to Gina just a little bit is what I have learned, just to avoid, like, people have started asking you questions about why you're not holding a drink in your hand, and that's like can get repetitive and whatever. Anything that I'm ordering non-alcoholic, I'll make sure that they put it in the same kind of glass. So I'll get just club soda and lime, put it in a pint glass. I'll make a point of asking, because it's just one thing that it's just, then you're just drinking and they don't know whether you're having vodka soda or whether you're having whatever. So it's a silly little thing. But I typically ask, as I see them start to pour it, to just put it in a pint glass or put it in a rocks glass or whatever it's going to be, just to make my life a little bit easier. Because then the center of conversation isn't always, why aren't you drinking? Obviously the friends around me, don't bat an eye anymore, but it's just one thing that can make things a little more smooth. And then you find your conversation is just about conversation, which can take the spotlight off of you a little bit. I would also say that anyone thinking that they can't do a month without, like, I certainly would stand in front of someone right this moment and be like, I cannot do a month without coffee. Can't do it. It's more like, we all know, like, I don't want to real bad, And so if you're in a place where you really want to try it, but there's that part of you that thinks you just can't, I promise you can. There will be hard days, just like Gina was saying, and finding those things, whether it's hot tea when you're sitting on the couch, like finding something that wasn't a glass of wine to end the night. Like I liked my glass of wine at the end of the night. I liked my half a bottle of wine. I'm not going to lie, at the end of the night when we would split a good one. And I would find myself going for snacks or going for something because I wanted to be putting something in my mouth. Recognizing that was first for me. And then consciously having, whether it was an ABC or whether it's finding a tea that I really, really like, and adding a little extra fruit in it or whatever it might be, and just sipping that throughout the evening, but kind of just recognizing that that's what I was doing, is that I wanted something in my hand other than, going for the snacks, was really helpful to me to kind of make it part of life.
Yeah. And piggyback on that, Lynn, I can't tell you how many times I've had people ask me if I'm pregnant because I'm not drinking. That's something
Sure.
I
Yeah.
like, didn't even like, and I'm just like, what?
Yeah, totally.
All right. I'd have to say that right now, my favorite of the flagship is the light, which I actually hadn't tried it until I did Ironman. And we were slinging it, and I tried one, and I was like, oh, it was super hot. I was like, this is what beer is for. It's a super hot day. I need something refreshing. So that, and I do like the cerveza. But I think you and I need to get together, Lynn, because we're on the same
You're also
team.
a multi girl.
I am, and the sours. So I'm not.
The sours. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a huge IPA fan. I did find the Ambassador brew to be really tasty.
Okay.
But I would say Soul Sour was my first love.
Soul Sour is so good.
That had me hooked, and then right into Downwinder and Wits Peak. Those are like my jams. But I do that red was on fire. And I like Oktoberfest too. So, just
cool. Well, that's good. That's good. I feel like I'm going to like Oktoberfest. That's great.
Yeah, it's really good. And I think they did a brown last year as well.
They did. It was tasty.
But the
I can't remember Dave's Brown or something. I don't remember.
Yeah. But as for advice, I think if you've gotten to a point where you're considering any period of sobriety, the first thing to do is to check your relationship with alcohol. And what is your motivation for doing this? Is it health reasons? Is it, you're not liking the way you feel? Is it because you're sending stupid text messages? And, what is your reasoning for doing this? And then finding a way to just remember that on your journey. And if it is something like, oh, I'm just kind of curious, I want to see what this is like, just remembering why you're doing it. And also, as someone who has stumbled in and out of this thing, giving yourself some grace too. I think that is entirely important, knowing that things happen, and it's how you handle those moments of adversity, whether that continues you down a path that you don't want to go, or you say, okay, what have I learned from this? And I think that's like the parallel to these endurance hard sports. It's
I
like,
was just going to say that. That sounds exactly like Ironman.
It does. Like stuff happens. It's stuff some's out of your control. Some you have a bad day. Some you make a bad decision. Like stuff happens. It's like, it's how you handle what happens.
Yeah.
So that would be my advice. My 2 cents, whatever. Yeah.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you guys. Yeah, Soul Sour. My boyfriend tries all of them, but Soul Sour is his favorite. He's like, when's that one coming out again? I'm like, not till February, but I'll be sure to buy a few cases next time, because he's always like, got any more Soul Sour? And I'm like, this was months ago. It's so good. So as an IPA drinker, I think Soul Sour is up there for me as one of the best non-IPA ones. So nice. Cool. So we'll open up the floor for questions. If anyone has anything either athletic or non-alcoholic related. Or you guys did such a good job covering everything. There are no questions. Cool. All right. Well, I really appreciate you guys hopping on. I mean, it's always fun for me just to learn about the ambassadors a bit more, but then to be able to provide insight to our group. And I just liked the diversity of everyone, you know, in our group, and then here tonight. It's really fun. And we find that in our cycling group a lot too. People just doing all different things, a lot of first time things, you know, accomplishing big goals and just getting out there and trying new stuff. So Rochelle, thank you for bringing this idea to light.
Thank
You were
you.
the reason behind this. So, and thank you guys for stepping up and volunteering your time and your knowledge. I think you guys all have Instagram and social media stuff, so feel free to follow them. And then obviously, I mean, I like flood people with Athletic Brewing content and beers. So any questions, let me know for sure. And I think I may try some groovy now.
There you go.
That might be my one venture outside of Athletic Brewing. I feel like I'm cheating on Athletic Brewing.
It's a different category.
Totally. Yeah, no, I feel
totally
like
fine.
that with beers though. There's a few really good non-alcoholic beers. And I'm like, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, everyone have a great night. Thank you so much. And we'll see you on Instagram and Facebook.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having us, ladies.
Thanks,
it was
Hunter.
a pleasure.
You're welcome.
Thanks for sharing your
Thank you.
stories. Thanks.
Have a great night.
Bye.
Good
You
night.
too.
Thank you.